Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Platform and Core Development Update. We are here with 5 platform teams and 1 core team. Though the teams were kind of fluid or flexible in the past few weeks, we still have those teams represented here. We are planning this session for 1 hour, and we are going to give you an update what happened in the platform and core development in the past 2 weeks. So without further ado, let's start with Tenderdash.
Balash, I think you're not sharing the slides.
Am I not sharing my slides?
Nope.
That's a shame.
Are you the host or is it Odysseus?
Should be.
No.
You are the. Yeah. There we go. Cool. I think I'm taking Tenderdash, right?
Yes, please.
Yes. So next slide.
Sorry.
So really, Tenderdash is pretty much done for release, except one little thing where we need to finalize withdrawals between Tenderdash and Core, and we have that planned for this sprint. So there are just some like extra tests that were written in Tenderdash, but that was pretty much the only thing done there. The Tenderdash devs helped out on the rest of the platform. So also, so basically adjust vote extensions for withdrawals. That's the last thing left there. And we have that planned. So there were some changes to the bindings as well, but that's also kind of more on the platform side. But it's integrated with Tenderdash. So we also probably, as you guys realize, just skipped over GroveDB and SDK. Those are because those don't require work at the moment. So let's move on to protocol. Ivan, are you taking this or is somebody else starting? Wait, you don't need, yeah. No. There we go.
Kostya is taking the first one.
Yeah, okay. I'll start with the first one, handle quorum rotation failure. So it was a pretty, I would say, quick fix. We were needed to handle quorum rotation errors. And to do this, we just added one extra request to core. Actually, it was already before, but it wasn't merged, and now it's completely merged. And yeah, it's done. And I would pass my torch to Ivan. He will tell you about the next things we have.
Thank you for the torch. Hello, everyone. This week, this sprint, we worked closely with infrastructure team to support V24 testing and deployment to the larger network, like Devnet and Testnet. So we updated Dashmate and fix some issues and add some additional functionality, like providing the status for the for different components what the Dashmate is running, so we can smoothly use deployment tool and Dashmate together. I would like to remind you guys that since we're following approach to eat own dog food, in deployment tool, now we're using Dashmate to start the high performance nodes. And so we can test both platform and Dashmate together. So we also are, one of the interesting feature was done by Michael Incubator developer. Now we have the HTTP API for Dashmate, which is pretty nice. So we can use it in our tests to get the status of components and do some interesting stuff there. We also are polished the deployment tool itself to enable different scenarios, like when we can destroy only platform on the network, redeploy it, and do some flexible routine operations, what we're doing with the networks from time to time. And we made multiple stability improvements. So the redeployment and other operations on the network go smoothly. We also updated the smoke tests to the difference between the test suite, what we have to test platform functionality, and smoke tests is that the smoke test is more like infrastructure checks. So, and this is comparing with the test suite, it runs very fast, like a couple of, like literally like a minute or something like this. So, and you can see quicker where is the point of failures in the infrastructure. And we implemented such things like chain halt check for the network and other pretty convenient indicators to make sure that everything works properly. We also worked on the continuous integration since the WASP DPP integration branch a little bit different from what we had previously, because now we need to compile the WASM, DPP and other Rust components for the client side, for SDK as well. And we end up that our CI checks takes like 1 hour or even more. So we planned some work on optimization of our pipelines. And we went through all the process, structured it properly. We changed and optimized Docker images. We incorporated different levels of caching for the Rust compilation, for the cargo dependencies, for NPM dependencies, and so on. And one of the cool achievement of the infra team that they provided, and we tested together the self-hosted runners. So for the heavy tasks, now we can use the own AWS instances instead of GitHub, the standard GitHub runners, which are much more performant, like using 16 core machines. And currently we have like twice faster the tests comparing with the V24 before integration of the WASM. And if you're comparing with the WASM integration, it's like 4 times faster. And it's still some of the caching mechanisms what we incorporated are not enabled with the self-hosted runners. So we should expect when the infra team will accomplish their work on the self-hosted runners, we expect even faster the process. And you should understand that that's very important for developers and for development. I mean, the speed of the CI, because you're doing some work, then you push and you want to see how it goes and the problems and errors. And if you're waiting for 30 minutes, it's dramatically slow down your development process and makes all developers sad. But when you have things faster, it's speed up the whole development process for the team and makes people happy, which is important. Yep. So I think we can go to the next slide, Balazs. Yeah, thank you. Igor, your work, please.
Hey, everyone. Yes, Ivan, kudos on making the CI work so fast. It works even faster than before the integration, so a huge improvement and a huge mental health saver during the development process. So thanks for that.
Leon is our hero.
Yes, Leon, right. Leon as well. So I'm thrilled to say that we are finally done with the Rust port. And I want to thank everyone who was involved, and especially those who were pushing the integration to completion during the most intense past 3 weeks. It was a long ride of a couple of months. Yeah, and we finally assembled all our pieces together. Aside from the fact that DPP itself was completely rewritten in Rust, one way or the other, this change also affected nearly a half of packages within the platform monorepo. And this made us to revisit some old problems. So beside integration itself, we fixed many other small things that were present in the project. An example of such thing is an old issue with the problem with the serialization of the private keys in Dashcore JavaScript library. Once in a while, we were getting an error saying that the key is not a valid ECDSA private key and signing of state transition would fail. The problem was that the Dashcore library was generating shorter keys, and instead of padding with zeros up to 32 bytes in serialized format, it was missing zeros, and this thing was failing when passing wasn't boundary. So this was quite old, but easy to fix, and we did that. Next thing would be that transition to Rust implementation of JSON schema revealed a couple of issues with the formatters and regular expressions within the existing data contracts. Also, we added tests for TypeScript typings of WASM-VP. Sorry for a lot of types, words. Yeah, there is no other way to express that. So usually if such tests are missing, it's very easy to not notice that certain change affected type definition of the library. And after the update, end users simply won't be able to compile the project, for example, if some significant change was introduced. We covered that for basic cases to future-proof typing system for the WASM-VP project. And besides that, there were around 30 more small adjustments, fixes, features, improvements, and etc. that didn't get to this slide, but were crucial to the completion of the integration work. So this is it from my side. I think we are ready to go to testnet, and Ivan will tell you more about our Devnet testing during the past week. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Igor. Yeah, thanks to our new deployment tooling in infrastructure and readiness of the WASM integration branch, we, as we planned, started the testing on the Devnet. So we deployed our new V24 with the WASM DPP branch to the Devnet, and we had about a week of testing of Devnet, running different tools, and we end up that some of the components are not ready for Devnet. For example, DAPI client was still didn't know about the existence of the high performance node, so we updated the API client as well to deal and connect to only to the high performance nodes and use the port from DML, from SML. And during the testing, we identified one pretty interesting chain hold scenario thanks to Lukasz. It was pretty interesting due to some connectivity issues in the network during the block execution. Some of the nodes missed the round zero of the block execution, and then they joined later, and it opened pretty interesting issue in JS Drive related to the synchronized masternode identities and how we store the state of the last synced core block, and it was pretty interesting journey. So we fixed that as well. And as far we can see, the current V24 looks good and works well. And as already Igor said, we're going to release version 24. I mean, like prepare all the change logs and prepare the release notes and release the Docker images 0.24.0 and deploy these images to the testnet. This is work what we planned for upcoming days. Currently, infrastructure team preparing the infrastructure on testnet for us for that. So we're expecting to see a platform again on the testnet very soon. And after that, we the whole team can focus on 25. That's probably Sam will talk now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move on. Sam?
Actually, Wisdom starts.
Wisdom starts.
But I'll give a quick intro, guys, for people that maybe didn't come last time. So basically, while a lot of people in the team were working on finishing V24, there was not much else to do. So what we did was the last part of JavaScript, which was the executor, that probably could, well, in my opinion, be the cause of many issues in the testing phase, and also a lot of slowdowns, because the last part written in JavaScript also maybe there could have been problems there. So we decided to rewrite that and to finalize things. So this was originally planned for post MVP, but I do want to tell you guys that it's going extremely well. And today we actually finished all the features, in the sense that they're all coded up. Some of them still have some bugs, and I'll show a demo later. And it needs to be heavily tested at this point. But there was a lot of work to be done here, and it's all kind of, when I say kind of working, it's working well, but I expect that there's another week of work here for stabilization to make sure that like a signature is properly encoded in all tests, stuff like that. So without further ado, Wisdom, why don't you kick us off with the first two?
Hey guys, my name is Wisdom from the GroveDB team, working on this. So last sprint, we're working on masternode identities. So now this feature has been implemented. It's in review. We had to create a new RPC method on the core side in order to return the diff with the masternodes, which made the implementation of this a lot simpler and cleaner. Another thing worked on was each node has states
that is required, but then gets destroyed if the node shuts down or something. So we need to save this state so that once the node comes back on, the node can load the saved state and then proceed from where it stopped. So this has also been implemented. This has been reviewed, so the logic looks good, but then we need to test it with the rest of the system. So that is what we're waiting for before we can like finally merge this in. So Sam?
Yeah, thanks, Wisdom. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff done, and I'm gonna try to like give a quick like update of what's what. The next one is balance update for asset log paid operations. This does not exist in V24. This is not a migration. This is actually, well, actually it did exist in V24, but it was done in a different way. In V24, what happened was you would pay for the, when you create an identity, you would create the identity and then you would pay for it in a second phase. So you create it based off the amount that's in the asset lock, and then right afterwards, you withdraw the funds from the balance that you just put in from the asset lock. In this new system, basically it's done in one go. It figures out how much you actually need to pay for the for the identity creation and or the identity top up, and it reduces your updated balance by that amount. So cool, that's done. So yeah, network upgrading with new logic. Okay, so we have a network upgrade test, meaning going from version 1 or version 2 to the next version. And you can also, it's basically the equivalent in platform of hard forks. It works completely by what a high performance masternode will do is literally just change to a new version of the system. And as soon as they change to the new version of the system, when they're running it, it will automatically say, hey, I'm on this new version. And when there are 75% of high performance masternodes in a given epoch, that's 18 days, that have signaled that they are on a new version, it gets locked in. And then after one epoch later, that's used to get other people that are a little bit more tardy also upgraded, it gets locked in and it gets applied. Now, there was, because this was written in such a way that it was being used by the JavaScript version, but it wasn't directly in the executor, it needed to be rewritten a little bit, and that's all done. Efficient DPP data serialization. I think people have been hearing about that one for months. That was done as well in this sprint. This one is now using Bing Code 2.0, not Bing Code 1.3, which is a new version of Bing Code serialization. And yep, that's all done. We have seen that like, for example, a data contract would go from, let's imagine 800 bytes, just a wild number, to about like, actually not a data contract, a document. A document, basically the data stored sizes are about divided by 2. It really depends on what type of data you have in there, but it is very efficient and it's close to the maximum efficiency that you could possibly have, because version 2 also uses a variant encoding for all integers. So it also makes integers very small. It makes everything very efficient. Verifying the block commit. That one was done by Lukasz. Sorry, I blocked out what that meant. So we get a block commit. There's the execution, the engine basically of platform of Drive ABCI. It goes prepare and process proposal, and then getting extensions that are used for withdrawals, and then it finalizes the block. And in the finalizer of a block, it gets the block commit back from Tenderdash. And out of an abundance of caution, we actually verify the block commit signature This was actually talked between me and Lukasz, and we agreed that even though we really should trust Tenderdash, like they're on the same machine, we don't trust them. Like high security all the way. We verify the block commit, so it's like a two-factor verification. So the only way that something is committed is if, like to the state, is if somebody is able to hack both Tenderdash and platform, which seems like quite hard to do. Okay, so next one. Ported logic for masternode identities to Rust. Wait, didn't we just talk about that one? Did we have that doubled? I guess we did. Yes. Oops. Sorry, guys. Let's skip over that one. Yeah. So the testing framework used to basically just insert data into Drive, but now our testing framework actually creates state transitions for all the information that it passes to Drive. So instead of going on a low level, insert, now it actually creates state transitions, passes the state transitions to the executor, and the executor will run all the state transitions in a block, validate them, process them, create state transition actions that then converts to atomic operations and then pushes to the storage. So it's a very different way of the whole system working, and it's working fine. And I'm actually going to show a demo of everything working shortly. Data triggers. So data triggers, so we had a lot of validation logic inside of DPP, and the issue with using it in DPP is that it's being used in an asynchronous manner. And right now, we don't have the ability to do asynchronous execution in the storage layer. Why was this working in V24? Well, because when we go through JavaScript basically acts like a barrier that takes asynchronous functions and makes them somewhat synchronous. So there's no actual benefit right now of doing them asynchronously. There would be benefit to doing them asynchronously in the future when storage supports it. And there's like a lot of work on verifying that there's no race conditions. But for now, this seemed like overkill to have it. So instead, we ported it to the execution by taking away the logic that allows for asynchronous calls, replacing it with logic that connects to the state directly, basically Drive directly. Yeah, so that's done. Yeah, there was another thing that kind of frustrated me. I needed to do threshold signature testing for withdrawals. And I used our BLS signature library, and I was like, where's all the threshold cryptography in Rust? It just was missing. So I had to implement that. It was a pretty small affair because we had the code in C++, so it was literally just using bindings to make that code apparent to the library. So that was done. Threshold signature testing for withdrawals, so that's also done. This is basically in the tests. When you want to create a withdrawal, you actually have to sign it by all participants in a quorum. So it's like creating the quorum in the test, like basically creating, if your quorum size is 100, which is the case in most of our tests, creating 100 keys, signing signatures, et cetera, for withdrawals, and threshold aggregating the signatures and verifying that everything is working. Done as well. Now, the real problem why we're not completely done with withdrawals is because we have an inconsistency between how Core does withdrawals and how Tenderdash does withdrawals and how platform, the ABCI application does withdrawal. So they all are doing it just a little bit differently, especially on the way that they sign the withdrawal. So in this coming 2 weeks, we are going to standardize between everything, and it will be done. So we'll probably have withdrawals in 2 weeks from now, because there's really, the difference is not very complicated. You just have to change the way we hash the withdrawal transaction. Vote extensions. So vote extensions are the mechanism for actually verifying that the withdrawals are correct. Withdrawals are actually happening in a 2-block process. First, the withdrawal is decided upon in the state. It's put in a queue for the next block, and it's done in a 2-block state because you don't want to start signing until the withdrawal is confirmed. Because if you did it in the same block, what you could have is, let's say round 1, a withdrawal starts to have 20 signatures, but it's not valid. We say it's not actually going to pass. And then round 2, a withdrawal gets another 20 signatures. It also doesn't pass. Round 3, a withdrawal gets 40 signatures. And I think I said 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 40, that's 80 signatures. But 40 is not enough for the round to say it's valid. But wait a second. It is not going to say it's valid. So the withdrawal will say in the state, it's saying not done. But then if you actually took those 20 signatures, and 40 signatures, and you combine them outside of the actual app, you would have a valid signature, threshold recovered. And that's very bad because you could make a withdrawal. So this is like an attack that I'm describing. So by doing it in a 2-step process, we get rid of the attack completely. And because all the withdrawals, even if they go through multiple rounds, they've already been pre-approved to be withdrawn. So, it's kind of okay waiting an extra 7 seconds for a withdrawal from to have this security. And it's very important security. Okay, next slide. So yeah, another thing that I talked about, and this was a lot of work, the validation and execution. All our validation functions were using a state repository that had to be asynchronous. We couldn't use that because Platform and Drive and GroveDB don't take asynchronous calls. And if we had tried to do asynchronous calls, we probably would not have released this year. So and also things are going to be fast enough. So we have to change the validation to be asynchronous. And there was actually a lot of work here in terms of, because when you see contract create, contract update, each one of those, so contract create is probably 1,000 lines of code. Contract update is 1,000 lines of code. Identity create 1,000. Identity update 1,000. So each one of these is actually really, really big. And I just didn't want to spend 5 hours talking about them because it's not very interesting for people, but it is all done. The validation is all done. There is some part that's a little bit weird about contract updating. The validation might not be restrictive enough, and we might need to make it more restrictive in the testing phase. Yes, we also had a new uniqueness validation in Drive, and I cannot remember what that is. Oh, yes. Currently, uniqueness validation was happening all over the place. We had various methods for verifying that something is actually unique, and a few implementations I found, actually 2 of the 3 implementations I found had an issue around uniqueness when an element is, when the index is unique, but an element in the index is not required. So in that case, there is no uniqueness if we have an element that is not present in the index. Anyways, it is advanced rules of our storage, and I standardized everything and put it all together so we wouldn't have multiple validation rules. Cool. Let's go on. So basically now it's like, okay, so what's the plan? What's going on? We had amazing work by the Rust port team. I guess everybody is porting Rust right now, but they got V24 somewhat stabilized, and they're pushing it to testnet. This, while there's so much happened on V25, there's so much changed as well, right? So all the tests are kind of working, but we're probably gonna need to go to DevNet, and we're gonna have to test more. So we have to finish what's currently in review and testing. Really, like earlier today, we were working as hard as possible to get everything done, but no, there's still some things in review and testing. We just need to, we can't like jump over things. We just have to make sure that everything is perfect. And then what we're going to do is we're going to push it to Dashmate, hopefully tomorrow. Dashmate, run it locally, because right now it's all running with mocks and like, yeah, a lot of mocks, but it's not running on a real fake network. Real fake network goes next. We probably will disable withdrawals because we have to like figure out withdrawals between core platform and Tenderdash, and that's actually going to take time because we have to have meetings, we have to decide the pros and cons of different approaches. So really, I just want to get this out on a DevNet, make it run for a week. So we'll probably disable withdrawals for like this V25 alpha. But I mean, this is kind of really a good success story. This is going very, very well. And it's probably going to reduce our time in the testing phase a lot, I'm going to guess, because I mean, everything being in Rust makes things so much easier. Okay, next. So what's left to do after that? So there are some things that I've noticed that are not well done. Validation costs need to be fixed. And this can these things can kind of happen while we're testing. It's not much, but there's some stuff here. Just-in-time atomic state transition payments. That's something that I really want. It is complicated to do. I think I wrote half the code for it. GroveDB supports atomic. Sorry. GroveDB supports atomic operations where you can basically, in a batch, pause the batch of operations that you want to do, figure out the costs up till then, and then add an extra element based off of the cost. This is like crazy cool features. It allows you to actually pay for your operations in the same batch that you're doing your operations. Because when you just change one field, you know how much that is going to cost in advance. It's known. But when you change everything in the system, there's no way to know how much that operation is going to cost. So yeah, basically you can do things very atomically, and it really can remove any type of issue with like failed state transitions. Finalization of withdrawals. Yeah, as I was saying, there's literally just the finalization of withdrawals, and then versioning. So for versioning, we have a version system at the moment. but it needs more work. And one thing, I've already made a document on how we should do versioning. We need, basically, if we don't have a good versioning system, when we release, it's going to be very painful to upgrade to the next version. I don't think versioning is going to take that long. I do think it's going to take 2 or 3 days. So, I did want to include it here. But my goal right now is to get this out on testnet, because you don't need versioning for incubator to start testing, finding bugs, us finding bugs. And you don't need withdrawals for that either. So get this out as soon as possible, and then we'll also add these features. But I did want to kind of tell people that this is there, so it's not like, oh, one more thing later on. But that's that. And with that, core team.
Yeah. Odi, would you kick us off?
Yeah. So hello guys from Core Planet. So as you may already know, we released V19 version on Friday. So we are quite happy about this. A quick summary of which are the biggest changes in this version. So the first of all is the new BLS scheme used once the fork activates. Let me just quickly explain for the people that don't know what BLS is. So BLS is the cryptography used supporting threshold signatures and aggregation of signatures used by masternodes for all the Dash specific features. So, for example, chain logs and instant send. And so in order to be more aligned with standards, we decided that we should upgrade the scheme and be up to date with the standards. So once the fork activates, we are expecting two, let's say, changes regarding BLS. The objects containing either a public key or a BLS signatures into the chain, will need to be versioned. So, for example, all the ProTX registration of master nodes, so happened before the fork, will have a lower version, and after the fork, we will support a new version saying, hey, this, for example, this ProTX registration is using the new BLS scheme, for example. Same rule is applied to final commitments, so containing several BLS objects. One thing that's, I wanted to tell you this before, but I forgot. The difference between the previous scheme and the new one is only in the serialization part. So they in simple words, they describe the same mathematical object, but they are serialized in a different way. So this has, as you understand, this can lead to differences when including a BLS, for example, in a hash calculation. So as you understand, it is a small change, but it affects a whole area of features. So this regarding BLS. Another change that was introduced, as I'm sure that you know that, is the high performance mass nodes introduction. So first thing to remember, you need to have 4000 dash as collateral for registrating a high performance mass node. And then you are allowed only to register a high performance mass node after the V19 fork. So before that, it will be rejected. So what is essentially a high performance mass node? Besides the difference in the collateral amount, it has a new mass node type, which is 1. The other one is the regular one is 0. And so once we will have some high performance mass node registered, we will see that into the Coinbase simplified mass node list Merkle root. So those changes are also applied into the messages sent to the mobile clients, so they can calculate the same Merkle root, so we can be aligned. And also, this affects again the BLS changes as well. So the Coinbase Merkle roots contains stuff written with the new scheme once the fork activates. So it has changes from both features. Another thing to keep in mind is that once you update your core wallet, not core wallet, I don't like this word, your core node, the internal database will start on migration, which can take up to a couple of minutes. So it needs to migrate all the already stored master nodes as regular master nodes, since now we introduce the new type. This has a small important thing to say, is that once you upgrade the internal database of your node, and for any reason you want to downgrade to a V18 version, then you need to re-index completely the chain, since the database will be broken for V18 clients nodes. Sorry. So how can we register a high performance master node? We have written a complete set of new ProTX RPCs, so used by Dashmate. So they allow to register update service, update register for a high performance mass node. Also, a difference in those calls is the fact that the high performance mass node require 3 more fields comparing to a regular mass node registration. So those fields are useless for core side, but we need to store them as they are used by platform. So I'm referring to platform P2P port, HTTP port, and node ID. Another thing changed once the V19 fork activates and valid until V20 will be released is that the high performance mass nodes during that period once they are selected for payment, they will be paid 4 blocks in a row compared to the regular ones. And last but not least, the platform LLMQ type, once the fork activates, will be formed only by high performance masternodes. Of course, we need to have the minimum number of high performance masternodes in order to achieve that. So V19 was released on Friday. We are expecting the hard fork signaling to begin on April the 25th. And the activation no sooner than May the 12th. So Pasta, do you want to continue with the rest of the core team?
Yeah, thanks, Odie. So a couple more things about kind of V19 stuff. We're looking at about 15% of masternodes have upgraded so far. That's pretty good progress for a weekend. So yeah, that's very good to see. We will be managing the proof of service spork to ensure that people don't get punitively banned, just a couple of days or a week after the release. And at some point, as we get closer to the hard fork date, that proof of service will be re-enabled again, and any masternodes that haven't upgraded will start to get proof of service banned, assuming that a sufficient number of masternodes have upgraded. There is one issue that we've seen with V19. It's quite rare. Sometimes when you're doing the database migration, there's a issue or some kind of crash for some reason, and it requires you to basically re-index. I've seen this reported by 2 people in the community so far. We did actually experience it once in our testing, but we weren't able to reproduce it. And so at the time, we thought that it was some artifact of our testing process. Maybe we were on a weird alpha version and they were incompatible or something, and that caused this issue to pop up. Because when we re-indexed from 18.2 and then upgraded to 19 multiple times, and we were never able to reproduce this issue. But that is a possible issue. You might run into that when upgrading, and that might end up causing a re-index. We're going to look into that a little bit and see if we can figure something out there, but it seems that that's just a rare circumstance for some reason. Yeah, we've like I said, 15% of masternodes have upgraded so far, and we've only seen it happen, or it's only been reported to happen twice. So it is a possibility, but it's pretty rare. And if it does happen, you'll just have to re-index. Another thing, when you upgrade, you will want to make sure that you also upgrade Sentinel. Sentinel version should be 1.7.3 after you upgrade. And yeah, we want to make sure that people are upgrading their version of Sentinel as well. And then hopefully in version 20, we can get rid of Sentinel. Okay, go ahead and move on to the next slide now, Balazs. Cool. So yeah, very briefly, obviously, V19 got released. So the dip changes that we've talked about for the past couple of weeks, those got merged. And so that can now be marked as done here. I spent a good bit of time working on kind of our release process and macOS binary notarization. We have signed macOS binaries, and that's great and a very important component. But macOS, I forget what version, but maybe a couple of years ago, macOS introduced Gatekeeper, that is a more kind of aggressive prevention of unknown binaries being ran. And so even though we had signed macOS binaries and Apple knew who we were and could see that we had a valid signature on the binary, it was still kind of annoying for users to launch the macOS application. It would pop up and say, you can't run this. And you had to know kind of the right way to bypass that prompt. it's pretty easy for more technical users, but for more kind of novice users maybe, or less technical users, it was kind of annoying. And we've seen it pop up on Discord or different locations before where people didn't know that they had to hold option when trying to open the binary for the first time or something like that. I spent some time this past week and figured out the notarization process, and we're expecting to release a 19.0.1 in the relatively near future. The timeline's not clear yet. We might wait and try and include maybe some other bug fixes if we see more issues pop up. But if we don't see more issues, then we might just release this new version just so that we do have notarized macOS binaries. And then that will enable users to just double click on the binary and it'll say, you know, you downloaded this from the internet. Are you sure you want to open it? But that's all. There's no real annoyingness of having to know that you have to hold shift or something when opening it. Just open it. So that's kind of an annoying thing that Apple does, honestly, but it's the hoops that we have to jump through, and we've figured out what we have to do now. So we'll be doing that moving into the future. So yeah, that basically wraps up V19. Moving into the future, we might have a V19.1 that includes different changes that we've been working on for the past month or so while we've been testing V19 on testnet. But it seems unlikely to me that we'll have a V19.1. It seems much more likely that we'll have a very fast follower of V20. We already have a version of kind of V20 that we have a version 20 alpha 1 that has been deployed to a couple of nodes on testnet. We're going to start doing more gradual testing to ensure that everything is working properly instead of one big phase at the end. So we have 5 nodes on testnet that are running alpha 1, and we're making sure that those nodes aren't getting banned or anything and that they're functioning as expected. And this week we're expected to have a internal devnet that includes asset locks. As I've talked about before, asset locks has been basically code done and basically reviewed for the past month or so. And it was just waiting for there to be an environment, particularly where platform and core can work together and make sure that our asset locks implementation is what the platform team needs, and that we don't have conflicting needs or anything, or our implementation is different from what they expect somehow. So we're really excited to get asset locks onto a devnet and make sure that that is good and that we can merge that in. And then on-chain chain locks has a pull request open, or at least it has part 1 open, and we are going to be reviewing that in the near future. We are planning on having version 20 on testnet. I don't know if we want to really publicize the timelines too much there, but it's expected to be a very fast follower, and we have a very aggressive timeline for version 20 of core being ready. Our normal release cycle is 6 months, and I'm expecting nowhere near that for version 20. We've really trimmed down what we're working on. There are only really these 3 or 4 major features that are going to be in version 20. One of them is basically already done. One of them is very easy and will be done this week. And then we've just basically got on-chain chain locks and enhanced hard fork that are remaining. So we're hopeful to get those done very, very quickly and get them onto a version 20, get version 20 onto testnet. But I don't think we really want to talk about that timeline too much yet. And then you can look at the merged pull requests. These past 2 weeks were busy. Honestly, I'm kind of not sure how we had so many. If you look at the past week, normally it's about 1 line, maybe like a line and a half. This time it's 3.5 lines of pull requests that we did. So go ahead and look through those if you're interested. A lot of it's kind of release process stuff, merging different, merging master back into develop and stuff like that. But there's also a lot of really good development in here. A lot of backports, a significant number of backports. As you can see in the top right, I have also started to include the progress of our backport. So you can see we've backported most of version 20 at this point and about half of version 21. So we're making really good progress on backports. But yeah, we had a lot of stuff going on these past 2 weeks, a lot of refactoring. And yeah, I think that basically wraps it up, and we can move on to questions. However, I'm going to take the first question. I saw someone ask about instance unlocks on testnet.
Please do.
And the status page is showing that is down. That is a artifact of some new automation that we're working on with the status page, and that is a false negative. Instance unlocks is operational on testnet. It's been operational. I haven't seen any time period within the past week at the very least where instance unlocks have been actually down. But that is just an artifact of the new automation. It seems like a timeout was too low, and the script wasn't waiting long enough to see the instance unlock. But yeah, everything is operational there, and I believe that should be resolved on the status page in the very near future. I've talked internally, and I'm pretty sure that is that event is going to be deleted, as it was a false positive or a false negative. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. So let's move on to the questions. Though we answered quite a lot of the questions. So I might cherry pick, and maybe we can repeat some. But I'm trying to address what we haven't discussed or answered. When will they officially launch smart contracts? They'll end up falling behind like the last bull run. Sam, would you take it?
Well, yeah, sure. It's hard to say that we'll be behind, because while we don't have smart contracts, we have a plethora of features that just are not possible on other blockchains. So it's not that we are behind, we're just different. And so that's kind of something to realize. In terms of smart contracts themselves, we're going to take a library that already exists and integrate it, but there's no way that process is going to take less than 3 months. It's going to be a lot of effort, and it's going to take some time. If we got, after release of, so before we had a certain amount of features that we were going to do after release that was in our roadmap for after release. One of them was like getting rid of like the JavaScript of drive ABCI, but that's going to be done before release. So even though the release of platform has gone back, well, some of the features that were going to be done afterwards are now completed. So we're going to have, it's not as if everything gets pushed out, is what I'm trying to say. Definitely pushed out maybe a little bit, but not as much. Just because platform's coming out, I just said it, but yeah, just because platform's coming out later than expected, it does not mean everything gets delayed by that amount. So smart contracts is one of the things that we're trying to aim to do, I believe, by the end of the year, but it's rough. And when I say it's rough, generally that means that it's not going to happen this year. I'll just translate Sam speak. But we're going to push for it. What we really need to do is get the first thing out and improve upon it. Then to always be thinking about the later thing, because we really do have some amazing tech that was built, and we really need to get that out so people can work with it, so people can there's a lot of contracts that you can do without the smart contract functionality exactly. So yeah, let's get that out first, and then we'll assess how long smart contracts are going to take.
All right, thank you very much.
I would like to elaborate a little bit more on what Sam is saying. Like, we are providing different unique feature comparing with other blockchains. So yeah, the unique feature of the Dash platform solution is data contracts. It's another way of thinking of the contracts where you don't need to store the state for your application. You don't need to learn Solidity or other smart contract languages, and you can use the simple markup to define your application data, so you can build easily applications much easier than you would use the smart contracts, build the 3 applications on top of blockchain. And this is a unique feature of the Dash platform, unique in the industry. That's why it goes first. And smart contracts, basically any like custom computation on chain goes after, because it's a thing which already exists in the industry. It's not something what we can
Make an impact.
offer to the people.
Yeah, well said, Ivan. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
So next question is, when masternode identities is discussed, does it mean HPMN identities, correct? There is not distinction on platform for 1K node?
No, there's actually no distinction other than, I think, a little flag. The identities are created from the masternode list, and then pretty much only the high performance ones are going to get paid through platform. So, but they're all created, and they're all created because there's going to be contracts that are used, for example, for voting, right? You can do a voting contract where you allow all voting identities to vote. The owner keys aren't really used that much right now in platform, but maybe there is a usage for the owner identity that we'll figure out in the future. So we just are safe and we're putting everything there. The operator identity as well. So the operator identity can actually get paid if you, I believe that some people might know this, but when you register masternode, you can actually put a percentage to go to the operator, and you can put an operator withdrawal address. So I think like 3 to 5% of our masternodes use this feature and I think many of those actually are using it basically to split the rewards between 2 people. So yeah, that's another feature that actually is also supported in platform, where the operator you can split the rewards between the owner and the operator of the high performance masternode. But again, yeah, all masternodes are masternode identities, and they all they're all in platform, not just the high performance ones.
All right, thank you. So next question, it's a bit out of scope. Maybe some of you or Sam can share any thoughts on SEC security accusation.
Yeah, so we're working very diligently on that. Actually, not so much me. I'm gonna shout out to Brian and Ernesto here that are really working hard at that at the moment, while I'm working hard at the tech. So what's going on is we're trying to gather more information with our partners. It was released yesterday, I believe, and Well, there's a lot of factual inaccuracies in what was said. And it's also directed at Bittrex. So we're just trying to have more information before we can officially respond or take action.
Thank you very much.
Not much. So not much at this point.
With a platform on testnet, with testnet operation, that means platform. When there is an issue or stoppage, where would be the best place to find the status communicated?
So we have a page
Fresh status?
We have a page about the status. Would you, and so we had a real problem updating it for a few months where it was just not being updated properly. But that's mostly because we just weren't ready. We were not in the right phase for testnet. It was maintained for core though. So what we're gonna do is we've been talking about ways to make sure that page is updated, and we'll link it in the comments. The page. It's fresh. What's the name, Balash?
Fresh
The URL?
status, I guess.
Fresh
Status.
I was able to find it by just Googling dash testnet status. And then it's the top link, it's the fresh status link. So that should help you find it.
Okay, there we go.
All right. And the last question is, can we get a report or write-up on Evo platform's uniqueness in the industry by the research team? I believe
we are. Please continue.
Yeah. We did one for GroveDB, I think.
We started doing one for GroveDB. We also have a website coming out for GroveDB. We have a lot of stuff done. The problem that we're facing, and the reason why this is going slow, is that a lot of the knowledge is very integrated with developers, and we just are very busy. So we are going to work on this, and we're going to work on this with demos to show what we can do that other chains can't do. But we really need something on testnet first. We really need the system because otherwise it's just, it's meaningless without the actual thing out there. So we're just going to get it out. Then we're going to, get it out on testnet. Then we're going to focus more on communication around what we actually just built. I've been trying over the last few years to talk about it here and there, and there have been some things coming out, but yeah, it's true. It's not as good as it could be.
All right, thank you. And one more, Sergey says, as far as I remember, DCG filed a patent for Dash platform.
Yeah.
There were new news about it for a long time. Was it acquired? Platform legally protected now?
So, to put it bluntly, the platform that's currently being released is not even 1% close to what the patent originally was. So it's to refile the patent is a lot of work that would take years to do. We still have, I think, the option to do it, but most likely we're not going to, because in this day and age, I think it doesn't, I'm gonna get lambasted by saying it doesn't really make sense. It's all open source. So because it's open source, anybody can take it. why use Dash? Well, you use Dash because you have like a team that's going to update. People have update the protocol. You have not just one team, you have a whole ecosystem. People have duplicated Dash before, people have duplicated Bitcoin, just literally duplicated. The value isn't there. The value is where the consensus of value is. So, having other people, having other groups use our technology is actually not a bad thing. It's a good thing, because then it means that the technology will grow faster than if we just had it proprietary. And having the technology grow faster means more features, faster features, less costs. So, while it's it's not good. It wouldn't be fun if somebody just like ripped us off and immediately like released something faster than us. It just probably is not going to happen. I've never actually, with a complex project as complex as ours, with hundreds of thousands of lines of code, it's more about the people that understand the system than the technology siloed. So yeah, to get back to the patent, I don't think we're really going to move forward with that.
All right. Thank you very much. So that's it for today. Thank you for the teams, and thanks everybody who joined, asked questions, or gave us feedback, and see you in 2 weeks.